My brother announced he's donating a kidney to save my life, but I'm not sick. The whole thing started 3 weeks ago when I was eating breakfast and scrolling through my phone. Tyler burst through my apartment door without knocking, which was normal for him, except this time he had tears in his eyes and was breathing like he'd just run a marathon. "I can't lose you," he said, dropping his keys on my kitchen counter. I looked up from my cereal, completely confused. "What are you talking about?" He sat down across from me, grabbed my hand, and said he'd been researching kidney donation for weeks and already scheduled his compatibility test for next Friday. I stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "Tyler, what kidney donation? I'm fine." But he just shook his head and pulled out this crumpled piece of paper from his jacket pocket. It was a printout from some medical website about chronic kidney disease symptoms. He'd highlighted things like fatigue, frequent urination, and swollen ankles in bright yellow marker. "You've been tired constantly for months," he said, pointing at the paper, "and you're always in the bathroom. Plus, look at your feet." I glanced down at my perfectly normal feet in my fuzzy slippers. "Those are just my winter socks, Tyler. They're thick." But he wasn't having it. He started listing all these symptoms he'd noticed. How I'd been drinking more water lately, which obviously meant my kidneys were failing. How I'd canceled our hiking trip last month because I was exhausted, which was clearly kidney disease and not because I'd been working double shifts at the restaurant all week. The weirdest part was how determined he looked. Tyler had always been protective since our parents died in that car crash 5 years ago, but this was next level. He'd already called his boss to request time off for the surgery, researched the best transplant hospitals in the state, and even started some weird kidney-healthy diet where he was only eating steamed vegetables and brown rice. I tried explaining that I'd been tired because I'd been covering extra shifts to save up for a new car since mine broke down. And yeah, I'd been drinking more water because I'd been trying to cut back on soda. But Tyler just kept saying I was in denial, and that kidney disease patients always try to convince themselves they're fine. Things got really weird when he showed up at my work 2 days later with a folder full of medical pamphlets and a serious expression. He cornered me during my break and started talking about living donor procedures and recovery times. My coworker Ashley overheard and asked if I was okay. When I said I was fine, Tyler jumped in and said I was showing classic signs of stage 3 kidney failure. Ashley looked horrified and started asking if I needed to sit down. Before I knew it, half the restaurant staff thought I was dying. My manager even pulled me aside and offered to help me find coverage for my shifts during my treatment. Last Monday, Tyler called me at 6 in the morning, practically shouting into the phone that his preliminary blood work came back and we were a perfect match. "It's meant to be," he said. "I'm literally going to save your life." I was still half asleep and just mumbled something about calling him back later. But then yesterday, everything clicked into place. I was doing laundry and found a receipt in Tyler's jeans pocket from urgent care. The date was from about a month ago, right before he started this whole kidney donation obsession. Curious, I called the clinic and asked about the visit. After some back and forth, the receptionist mentioned they'd given him some concerning news about his own test results and recommended follow-up with a specialist. When I confronted Tyler that evening, he finally broke down. Turns out he'd gone to urgent care about some back pain, and they'd found something suspicious in his blood work. The doctor wanted him to see a nephrologist, but Tyler was too scared to go. Instead of dealing with his own potential kidney problems, he'd convinced himself that I was the sick one, and that donating his kidney to me would somehow fix everything. "I thought if I could save you, maybe karma would save me too," he admitted, sitting on my couch with his head in his hands. "I know it sounds crazy, but I couldn't handle the thought of losing you when I might be losing myself." I made him call the specialist that night and schedule an appointment for this week. Turns out his blood work showed early signs of kidney disease. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but definitely something that needed monitoring. The irony wasn't lost on either of us.